You guys are live.
Okay, thank you. All right, so welcome to April 8th HAC meeting. We're calling the meeting to order. First order of business is always just to get everybody on file with their names. So since things are being recorded, as we talked about last time, we need everyone to state their name. And for any votes that we do, we need you a voice vote. So unfortunately, raising hands just won't work. It needs to be recorded. So I am Laura Fontana.
Mark Chomp.
Justin Day.
Kevin Wade.
Bill Walters.
Thank you. So all commissioners are present. We have a quorum. We can begin with our meeting. First order of business is always to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So we did get those in advance. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a second.
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any comments?
We're going over the old business. That's separate from this.
Correct. We're just approving, yeah, the minutes of the last meeting. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So if no changes by the commissioners, then can I have a full vote to approve the minutes as presented?
Kevin Wade, aye.
Aye.
Justin Day, aye.
Bill Walters, aye.
Hi, sorry, this is Layla. I was having technical issues to join with the audio.
Okay, you're on there now. Mark, can we just have a verbal aye on that, please?
Yep. Mark, can you hear me or are you having problems?
I just heard you. Yeah, I was having a second. I had a problem. Okay, thanks. Okay, so currently we have no old applications on file for tonight's meeting. The agenda did show 3 applications. Just so everybody knows, application number 3, 2 Plum Alley, that was a tier 1 approval. So that is not on our agenda for this evening. So we have 2 on the agenda, 29 The Strand and 57 The Strand. So, all right, so Marika, do we have people in the lobby for these?
Yes, we do. We have several.
Okay.
Read the list.
Well, yeah, I think we're going to start with 29 The Strand. So we're looking for people associated to 29 The Strand to bring on the line.
Okay.
Do you want to tell them that, or how do you do that?
I'm just going to pull up the agenda myself real quick.
Okay, so Barbara Belford is the name of the applicant.
Okay. All right. So we have, let's see.
I'm going to take my switcher off.
I have one that doesn't have a name listed. It says HP ProBook.
Bill, is that you?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought sometimes. Nope. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's somebody who connected with this. It's the name of their computer, I guess.
Yeah. I have Mr. David Dalby. I have Dr. Betchel. I've got Gail Seitz, Gutowski, Janet Rossiter, and Mark and Laurie Lorenz. I hope I said everybody's name correctly. I apologize if I didn't.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to put them all on, and then I'll tell them where we're going to start.
Okay, I'm going to bring everybody in.
Okay.
This is Dave Dalby.
Okay, everybody is now in.
Okay, thank you. Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Laura Fontana, a commissioner with the Historic Area Commission. All the commissioners are on the line tonight, so we have a full quorum to conduct business. So we're going to do one application at a time. So we're looking to do, 29 The Strand first. So is Barbara Belford or anybody who's representing Barbara on the line? If you are, please unmute yourself and introduce yourselves to the commissioners, please.
We're unmuted. Are we unmuted? Can you guys hear us?
So we can hear
We can
you.
hear you.
Okay. I'm Angelo Rispoli Jr., sitting here with Barbara Belford for the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
I don't think our video is on. Is our video camera on?
No, you're not.
Okay.
I mean, if you can turn it on, great. If you can't, we'll just work with you. It actually says HP ProBook, so we were wondering who that was.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. All right. Is there anybody else on the line for 29 The Strand?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. So
I'll share the application, Laura, on the screen.
yeah, why don't can do that. So all right. So
Everybody see the screen?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Rispoli and Ms. Belford, usually how we do is we'll have you kind of explain the project to us, and then the commissioners and Layla will have some comments and ask questions. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the project?
Okay, what we're proposing to do is a first floor addition. It's going to extend 6 feet out from existing. Window units are going to remain the same. If we're adding a door unit, it's going to be a Marvin door unit that's going to match existing window units. Siding, it's going to match existing, just beveled cedar siding. Trims will match existing. Asphalt shingle roof will match existing. And we're proposing to use a spiral stairway with it. With the door.
Okay, so just so we're clear, so Layla, can you go to the other picture for a second? Yeah. So the left-hand side is the current existing back of the home, correct?
No, that's the
neighboring. That's the neighboring house.
Okay. So okay, so that's your neighbor's house, and then this is your proposed what it's going to look like when you're complete.
Correct.
Okay. Now you're only working on the lower and the first floor, is that correct?
Correct.
So this is not happening? Or is that just what you're showing in the back?
Yeah, this was a drawing that we received from somebody else, but that's not happening. That second floor stuff isn't happening. Just what you see on the first floor there is pretty much what you'll see, when it's finished. We can also provide new drawings for it all, scale drawings if it's necessary. But pretty much what you see there on the first floor is what we're proposing to build.
Okay,
Okay.
so
So
building,
that answers one question. We were wondering about that second floor. So, okay.
The drawings are done by.
And
so yeah,
all right.
so if we look, just to clarify, if we're looking, this is the corner, this is the wall of your neighbors, that's where it aligns. And so you'll be sticking out about 4 feet from the neighboring property?
Correct.
Okay. And then based on the section, you will have this lower level where you're doing some modifications, and then you will extend out, but you're still staying with the existing slope, right? This is the existing slope of the roof. You're just extending it down a little bit to accommodate?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then that's where you're putting in everything, and all of that is going to be based on the application, a wood window, wood siding.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yes.
this,
So
the
the windows
staircase
are going to
is-
match. We're going to use the same units that we have here, the window units that are in place now. And the door unit, it's going to be a Marvin door unit that's going to match the windows. I mean, those are the specifications on them 2 units.
so this may just be from our, when you walk out the door, are you on a landing before you get to the stairs? I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
Okay.
somewhat of a landing there. Yep.
Okay.
So there's a landing and you go up the stairs. And on the floor above, you just walk straight out. And then there's the spiral staircase going down.
So just safety wise, you don't need anything around that landing? I'm just wondering.
Well, a handrail, and if it changes, it would just, we can provide drawings, if we do decide to change it. But Yeah, I mean, there'll be a handrail around it all, you know, around the landing, just for safety purposes.
Okay, I just was curious.
Mhm.
With the landing. All right, so do any of the commissioners have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Kevin. Can we take a look at the, if you could scroll up, Leah?
Mm-hmm.
No, the
Or
other way.
down. Mm-hmm.
Keep going. Okay, right here, I have a question. Everything above, what is that, 10 feet, 3 inches, 3 3/4? Everything above there doesn't really exist. That's something that should not be on the rendering here. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, just disregard anything above that mark there.
And again, when you come out the door on what you call the first floor, at the, a little confusing to me, 0-foot elevation. Does this grade on this property kind of work its way down toward the river?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, what you're seeing below that door unit there is the, you know, considered the basement. So
Okay.
you know, that would be considered the first floor.
But
So-
there is a support for when you step out that door. You're not just flying through the air, right?
Oh yeah, no. There's a landing there.
Okay, there's a landing and the railing at that landing is what, compatible with the metal spiral or compatible with wood or what?
Yeah, so we're proposing to match the neighbor's hand railings.
Which is?
over here. It's wood, it's treated lumber.
Okay. So you're simply extending back 6 feet
6 feet, correct.
and you're using all the approved materials?
Yes.
And then to Kevin's point, your 0 elevation, that's what we call like the street, your first floor level.
Yeah, street level.
What's the headroom
Um,
inside where those 3 windows are, just inside the windows?
I want to say roughly, you know, 7 feet to the top of the windows. Yeah, roughly 7 feet to the top of them windows.
Okay. I've got no further questions.
So is there a skylight on the second floor currently? Is that?
On the first floor there is.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
But we're not going to change anything about that. We're going to leave that in place, you know, and just continue with the pitch of the roof on down.
Okay. I'm just looking at a picture I took of the back of the house today, so.
Mhm.
All right, so it's basically extending 4 feet past the neighbor,
Approximately, yeah.
approximately on each, probably on each side, right? Okay.
Yep. Uh-huh.
All right, and so just to make sure, I just got to write it all down. So you're using, this is going to be for the motion, so sorry if I ask it again, Angelo. A Marvin door, right?
Correct.
Did you say you're using the existing windows? Okay.
Yeah, the same as what you see there now.
Okay. And then the siding is the
Cedar. Mhm.
cedar.
Yeah, cedar bevel siding.
And a Marvin wood door, if you're writing notes, Laura, to be precise, a Marvin wood door.
Yeah. To match.
Well, let's have him answer. It's a Marvin wood door, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Very good.
Yeah. States noted in the application too, so that way we have it on record.
And the current windows are of the correct material, I'm going to assume.
Oh yeah. Well, they've been there. They've been in
30
place
years.
for 30 years now.
Okay. So that's kind of like an in common. Okay, siding, windows, door. And we're just gonna say roughly 4 feet past the neighbor, just so I know what I'm talking about.
And wood railing on the first floor exit door.
The wood railing. Okay, on the lower tier.
I think he has it marked as first floor tier.
Is the spiral staircase all wood too, or is that going to be?
Metal, if we can. We'd like to propose a metal stairway.
Does anybody have any concerns about that?
No, I mean, on the back elevation,
Right.
metal, as long as it's not sort of like a bright aluminum, but it would be sort of like if one had sort of metal railing, I think that would be acceptable.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Any other comments, Layla?
Yeah, I mean, just to say the comment on this one is that the scale of the addition with, when compared to the overall is not really large. It's sort of extending, as you said, 4 feet from the neighbor, just 6 feet from where it's existing. They're staying within the same parameters of the roof line, just extending it lower. So it still fits and doesn't sort of change the overall volume. And all of the materials are appropriate with hack in terms of being the wood material for the windows and for the siding. So from that perspective, my recommendation would be an approval. We should also note in the minutes that the second story, the upper story work showed on sheet 2 is not included in the scope of work.
Right. Yep, so not included in the scope of work. Okay, all right, so does someone want to make this the motion?
So moved.
All right, I'll read it first, just so we're all on the same page, just to reiterate. So the motion is to approve the application as presented with the following. So we're just going to list specifics. A Marvin wood door, reuse of the 2 or 3 windows that are existing. So that's an in-kind. The use of 6 inch cedar bevel to match the existing siding, a wood railing on the lower tier, a spiral staircase that will be of metal. And there's, the slope of the roof line will stay consistent. It's going to be 4 feet past the neighbor. And the second story on the drawings is not included in the scope of the work. So that's the motion. Can I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Can I have all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so the motion passed. All right, well, thank you for your time this evening, Mr. Rispoli and Ms. Belford, and good luck with your renovation.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Have a great night.
See you.
You too.
Okay, so moving on to the next applicant we have is 57 The Strand. So can the individuals who are representing 57 The Strand please unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves to us, please?
This is Dave Dalby. I'm the architect.
Hi, Dave, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rob Rossiter.
And Janet Rosser.
Great, thank you. So, welcome. We appreciate the drawings that you've provided in advance. So that was, very good information for the commissioners to review. So I appreciate you getting those to us for the application. So all we're going to ask you to do is just, you'll see on the screen we have the application. But so just give us an overview of the project, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, as the architect, I guess I can speak to the project itself. This is an extension of where we're extending an existing back porch. Right now, the area in the rear is, you can, the picture to the right there. We're basically extending that area out to, and you can see on the plan where we're extending it. The first floor will be enclosed space. The second floor will be a screened-in porch for about maybe 3/4 of it, and then an open deck for the last quarter. That's a general overall description of the project. I'll let you keep going through the photos there. For the materials, we're using for the crawl space area. Now this will have a crawl space. For the crawl space, we're going to be using, trying to reuse as much of the existing brick from the patio demolition that we can to try to match the existing. There's only 2 areas where it will really be visible, the elevation, that elevation. But if you go to the photographs very quickly, if you don't mind, I believe there should be 1 photograph from the street. Yeah, and we're the house to the left, and you can see that you're not going to see this from the street at any location. It's you've got to pretty much be standing right at the alley. That's about maybe a 6-foot, maybe a 7-foot wide alley, so it's not going to be visible. We still are trying to use the existing brick as much as possible. The siding will be a hardy board plank siding, the same width to match existing. We're going to be residing the existing green portion. We'll be residing that. And that'll be we picked a color, forget the color, it's a blue. I can't remember exactly what the color was picked. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, now there you go. That's about the best view you're going to get from the street for this edition. So I guess go back to the elevation is probably about the next best thing. The windows will all be compatible with existing. We're looking at obviously different manufacturers. It could be a Marvin, could be a Colby. We'll get something compatible. The railings are a PVC, and we've sent a picture of that. The porch is a screened enclosure, and there you go, that's your typical railing. And then the roof will be a very shallow A-frame to hip into the existing roof, kind of in the upper left-hand corner there. I'm not sure what else to describe. Maybe the rosters can add some more information to it, or I can certainly available to answer questions.
Yeah, basically what we're doing is adding a first floor family room off the back and with a screen-in porch, as David described, above, with the last part of it being a small open area, some deck out there. But it's pretty straightforward, just a family room, screened-in porch deck.
Okay. So, well, thank you
Question.
both. Yeah, we're going to go to questions. Thank you. And then we'll do public comment. Go ahead.
The length is 30 feet, the width is 15.
That's correct.
Okay, and the height?
Believe it's 8 foot on the first floor. It'll match the existing floor lines of the existing porch. I believe it's nominally about 8 feet. Total height, I'm sorry, I did not do.
You'll be about like at maybe 19 feet because your level 22 is at 17 feet, Dave.
Is that what it is? Okay, I'm not.
Yeah.
Your picture is blocking out my Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Yeah, 17 feet. Yeah, I see it. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
to the top of the roof, it'll be about 19.
It's
There's a very shallow pitch.
and it's generally in proportion to the initial structure.
The width is, the depth, it's adding an extra 30 feet.
It is, yes.
So in terms of the massing,
Now,
it's,
let back up on that a little bit. The roof will not be the full 30 feet. I want to make that clear. If you go back to the elevation, the roof does not go out over the sun deck.
Mhm.
So what would that be, 20 feet?
Should be on the plan, I believe. Scroll over to the other left, other left. There we go. Right there, yeah, 10 feet. So it's probably about 20 feet long then, yes.
Mhm.
You mentioned a railing that was PVC. Did I misunderstand that?
No, you understood correctly. We could certainly do it out of wood. Generally the looks of the PVC I thought were appropriate with the surrounding area, but it can certainly be done out of wood and painted white.
Okay, I'm at a loss. I don't have any experience with that. Layla, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, PVC, we typically try to avoid, and the preferred is always wood. I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, there are two conversations we have to have. One is the scale and the massing of the two-story addition, how it compares with the original building. And so that is one thing that we'll have to talk about, because this is really very, very big. And then the other with the materials, typically, we definitely do not recommend PVC. The same thing where you have structural wood posts that are wrapped with PVC trim.
Okay.
So all that, so in terms of materials, PVC trim is usually not preferred in the historic district. Wood is the preferred option.
We can do
Then
that in wood.
a little bit of a setback too for the, I mean, I think we have to talk about the stairs in the alleyway, right? Isn't that?
Well, yeah, we have to talk in terms of just proportions.
Right.
There are a few things, which is one, but I want to see if anybody had sort of other questions. Generally, we have an addition here with a proportionality that's actually adding a sizable mass to the original. And if you look in the, if I go back sort of just to a plan view, whoops, which is not the plan view that I'd hoped for. Sorry about that. I had, then I went in a different direction. Oh gosh, there we go. So you see, if anybody can still see my screen, we're talking about, original building, we're talking about current addition, and we're talking about extending this significantly an extra 30 feet. So we're transforming this whole massing into something that's out of proportion with the original building. And we're talking about going 30 feet on the first floor and then an extra 20 feet plus balcony on the second floor. So it's a two-story massing. And from that perspective, that is something that would not meet the guidelines in terms of we say about the proportion.
Okay, but the
And
next
how-
door neighbor's house, let me just interrupt you there. The next door
Mhm.
neighbor house was built by the brother of the one that we own, and it will go out further than the extension that we're adding. So why would that be approved and ours would not be?
There are a couple of things. One is there's the one-story addition versus the two-story addition. Two, there's the fact that each, because you see you're sort of lining up with the adjacent, you're lining up pretty closely with the adjacent one. Two, the fact that each application stands on its own. I cannot speak to what was approved on, the other property, but I can speak to the proportions within this property and within the adjacency with what's on either side. And also with what the guidelines typically are in terms of any additions should not overwhelm the primary building. And stay within the scale.
I understand your point that you don't compare, but if you look at the next door neighbor's house, it goes out another 30, 40 feet past where we're even proposing in this addition with the other structure of the garage.
Mhm. And again, as I said, each application must stand.
I understand they all stand alone,
Yeah.
but we're just making a comparison of what has been approved historically by the association and what we are proposing now.
Yeah, let me jump in for a moment. What I think the applicant is saying
Who's speaking? Who's speaking?
Bill's
Wa-
speaking. Bill's
Bill
speaking.
Walters.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I should have identified myself. When you talk about mass and proportion, let's talk about mass and proportion. Your point that each application stands on its own is certainly valid. But that doesn't change the reality that this has less of an impact and is more in tune with the surrounding mass and proportion than as currently exists. I mean, your argument is circular when you get to mass and proportion. And I guess I'm just restating what the architect has stated, but I happen to agree with him.
Yes, and the one thing that I just sort of need to underscore, there are other things that have been done within the district that were things that did not meet necessarily the guidelines or the references, and that's why that point comes to, and I appreciate Mr. Ruster's comment that you understand where that is coming from, but you also do have to look at the adjacency of all the other properties and the fact that with the two-story, you do have something, and we do have also the graphic guidelines showing the proportions between additions that should always sort of be subsidiaries to the primary. And when we're getting here at a massing that's pretty much going to double the original footprint, it is something that, my opinion is that this is something where the massing is too large, and the depth of the addition is problematic. The other question about the stair and blocking going all the way into the fence and property line, there are also issues of setback where we've typically asked for those stairs to be tucked in if they existed, or really pushed further back where they couldn't be seen. But those are primarily the two
Comment, I mean,
issues.
I'll make a comment on that, and it is a complaint that we've received from the US government, from our neighbors. We're actually trying to manage water by putting those to stop water from intruding into further past that point by putting that blockage there. So that kind of goes back to what the whole community's in a rave about, is that the waters protrude all the way out to the street. This will stop it at my property at that point. So that was part of the concept of putting those stairs in.
Well, I have a comment. I thought the slope was high on street level and worked its way down to the river. I don't mind water running back into the river. That's where God wants it to be.
Well, I would agree, but I would stop it there so it doesn't continue to hit the houses. That we would stop it at that point in time. That's kind of, I mean, what's the berm and all that they're debating to stop the water. So I'm putting a blockage on the side of the house so it doesn't protrude, doesn't continue to go up. And what actually I've talked to the next, may I continue to speak, please? Then what I've spoken to the next door neighbor is we would continue a wall over to a wall adjacent to where our wall is. So we would continue the blockage of the water from going into houses and would stop before that. So that's kind of the concept there with these stairs.
You're talking about these stairs?
This is Kevin. I'm a commissioner. I can only speak to myself, for myself. That's not a compelling argument to me. That's just one person. However, I do need to ask a practical question. Do you have another place to put those stairs? I mean, for purposes of being a stair and not a dike.
Well, I mean, I guess the concept is you would put them in the front, but it's going to block the view then, and that's the whole purpose of having these beautiful houses sitting on the river so you can see that beautiful view. I mean, that's kind of the concept. And again, it was back to putting it there because the next door neighbor has a wall on their patio, and I could connect into that patio.
But the purpose here seems to be that you want to be able to access the rear portion without going through the front of the house.
The river side of the house, right?
Yeah, which there is a door now. It just goes out the back.
Yeah.
We're just
So,
proposing all windows on the back, so it's
We're-
just, we can see the whole river view
Right.
from the inside of the house without having to have a door.
and I mean, and well, I mean, there is that case, or there is also the fact that you could have two, you could have two openings and just a tall door that would go out on the river. If the visibility was the issue, in order to be able to have that access.
And that's what we have today. I don't disagree with you. That's where we have a panel of windows and a door. I just was hoping that we could get a full view of the river rather than having a obstructive view by the door.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's your money, it's your home, it's your taste, it's your interest, but this is Kevin again. They have French doors that you can see through quite well.
Well, I also,
I'm not having a huge problem with the mass of the structure.
Yeah.
But I am having a problem with the stairs, and maybe I'm just not seeing how it all fits.
It'll pretty much block the walkway on their side of the property.
Now, what's their side? The owner's side?
Right here, this is, if you look at the plan,
Okay,
this is the fence, the property line going along here, correct, Dave?
Yes,
And so literally the stairs take the width of the walkway. Up 5 and down 5 to be able to have a back access directly from the street. I mean, that's why, I mean, this door is a way to provide access either from the side directly into the proposed addition, or to go back and go from the addition and go back down and go all the way to the front. But it takes up the whole width. And HAC does have purview on setbacks and things like that. And typically we've tried to be more discreet about that. So if we go back, and let me see if I can get back to the street view that I had. I'm trying to.
Right, in other additions that we've had come forth to the commissioners, we had asked them, we've approved setbacks, and their stairs were part of the addition. So when you're looking down the alleyway, we don't see the stairs.
Yeah, so here
It's flush back.
you would have, this would all be a wall that would keep on going. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Kelly, can you see?
yes.
So that would be a wall continuing. And then right here at this width, you would have stairs going up and then going down. Oh, and so this would just keep on going in terms of massing. This is where you would see that this would go all the way back 30 feet. So when I say how you do perceive the mass from the street, and it is a fairly large massing, that's where you would perceive it. And then you'd have the stairs here.
well, if the view
Kevin,
on,
I have a question too. I mean, you could not recess those stairs into the structure itself?
no, it's not wide enough. We're only talking about 15 feet. So if you put 3 feet, I mean, then you would be under 12 feet. I mean, that doesn't, I mean, the only other, the other option is to put the stairs and the door on the other side. And which is up against a brick wall that the neighbor has. And I could put the stairs on that side, and you wouldn't see it at all from the street. And then the water would flow, and and the next door neighbor can complain about the water flow into their property.
I think the fact of having the depth, you have 1, 2, let's say you take these, and we typically, I mean, HAC is not about doing design during the meeting, but if you were to pivot these and fit this size of stair here, you would be losing a little bit of square footage, but you could have an entrance, and considering, the overall, by the time you put the landing.
But this is a great room.
Right, the whole wall's coming down. I mean, it's gonna be one continuous room. It's not gonna be, I mean, I have a little tiny kitchen, then I'm gonna put a kitchen table on the, where you just talked about putting stairs, and then a family room. And what, that's kind of the concept, is that the wall that we have here existing is coming down. It's gonna be a great room. I mean, the kitchen's it's a very tiny kitchen.
There's no room for a table.
There's no room for a table. I cannot put a kitchen table in my kitchen. So what I'm doing is putting a kitchen table where you're talking about putting stairs.
What about the idea of putting the stairs on the other side of the addition?
I suggested that I don't, you could just flip that.
I would voice a little bit of concern because the area in the sort of the middle of the page where it says existing structure, go up. No, not the page, your cursor. Right, yeah, the little recess area there. That kind of is an alley, not an alley, but it's a completely recessed area, and putting a stair in there, I'm not sure.
You're talking here?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would maintain access back to that area. This, I guess, this may be a little bit comment more of the Rossiters in terms of maintaining anything back there. Water, snow, leaves, whatever.
I see what you're saying.
And we already have problems with leaves, we have problems with that now.
Right.
And there's a basement door there, so it just kind of collects at the basement door.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is correcting a catch.
Yeah, you're basically building a dam there also.
Yeah, right. You're absolutely right.
It will be a ponding issue. But I mean, this is kind of where we're talking about, when we talk about the scale, is having a volume that comes to here and then having a volume that comes pretty much all the way to here at the second floor.
Well, this is Kevin again. My biggest hangup are those doors, the steps on the side. If you move them to the back of the addition, I'm more favorable for approval, but that's only me, and you need 3 votes. So that's where I'm at.
I have a possible solution for the steps, but I would like to discuss it with the Rossiters outside the meeting, so.
So let's just, so mass is definitely one concern, it sounds like, in some capacity. The stairs, I think, are another that we've been talking about. And I think the third is just some of the materials. For
Yeah,
the
the
structure.
PVC is easy to get rid of. I can certainly just go with a wood.
Right. And then I think I saw, was it hardy board? Is that?
Yes.
So is the current structure, what's back there now on the extension? Is it wood?
I believe it's a wood, yes. Well, I don't believe it is. It is an old wood, wood lap siding. And we'd be replacing it on the existing.
Is there any way to continue with the wood versus the hardy board?
It's basically just a maintenance issue, I guess, for the Rossiters too.
We're already having problems with, we just had the house painted, it's peeling, the wood's rotting. I mean, it's exposed to the river, which is as you know, is very tough on any kind of material like that. And hardy board's being accepted pretty much everywhere, in historical areas and
Because it looks like siding.
it looks, it looks exactly like siding. It has the natural grain. You just go up to it and you don't realize it is until you touch
Did we
it.
include a picture of that? I don't remember if we did or not.
No.
No? Okay.
In terms of typically the preference that you're going to use alternate materials in areas that are in the back that are not visible from the public right of way, we can look at some of the engineered woods that can be painted because,
Oh, yeah, it's painted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be painted.
So, and a hardy plank has been accepted in areas like that. It's not my preferred because there are other alternatives that are out there, but that's something that has been done. And also the materials in areas not visible from the public right of way have been accepted for additions. I think vinyl is definitely typically a no-no. So I think removing all the PVC covers.
We would not go in that direction. I agree.
Right.
Or the PVC covering and things like that.
Okay.
And then the windows in the back, or what material are those?
They're Anderson 400 series. Anderson Woodwright windows.
Yeah, so those are wood interior exterior, right? They're not clad, or are they clad?
That's correct. No, they're wood.
So they're at the Anderson 400 series. I'm just taking.
400 Woodwright windows.
Woodwright series.
Thank you. Okay.
Are those true divided lights?
They are not.
Are they applied muntins? I believe they're applied muntins, aren't they, the wood rights?
I believe they're between the panes.
Oh, so the inserts, they're not applied.
They're not applied, no.
Oh, they're in between the
Hmm.
panes of glass. Any of the other commissioners have any questions or comments or concerns? We're gonna have to open it up to public comment for a few minutes. So we can always go back for discussion, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any other comments.
Quick question on the second story screen porch, is that, and how far past the neighbor's second story does it actually go?
I probably don't, can we go to,
It will, if we're seeing that currently based on the drawings, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, based on the plan, your first floor kind of lines up with the neighbor.
based on what I could see from the photographs and
Yeah.
the scaling, we have a civil engineer involved, but we haven't gotten the actual lines and grades yet.
So that means to your point, Mark, the first floor addition will come pretty much to here. If you can see the picture that I'm showing, sort of.
Yep, so aligning with the neighbor, right?
Yeah, and the second one will come.
The setback,
The
okay.
second one will come up to here. To this line.
Okay.
So the 30 is here, and then you take about, so it's pretty much, you're gonna have a mass, if you take this, and I think when you look at they have when you see here,
Mhm.
like the first floor will line here, but the second floor is gonna come pretty much to here. So
That looks about right, yes.
it's gonna be fairly considerable.
Okay. And then just not to harp on the step. So just to make sure, so there's no, since it's visible from the right of way, there's no setback requirement on those steps, so they can build the line there?
It is visible from the public right of way, so you can ask that they should be at least put far enough in terms of where they are, far enough back so they not be visible from the public right of way. Because if you see, this is where we're looking, right? So if this is the view from the public right of way. And
Mhm.
they're talking about putting the stairs at this point,
Right.
coming up there, right there.
And that setback is under our purview then, or is that?
Typically, setbacks are hack purview. How far they go from the fence, how far you want them, they're all around, they're typically hack purview.
Okay.
They're part of hack purview. Ah, sorry. I don't mean to give anybody
And
emotions.
then as far as materials for those steps go, I mean, brick, is that pretty much?
They were going to be brick, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions before we go to public comment?
I know we're just looking at this one, but when I see the screen, the addition and the screen, the other thing is there, with those posts, is there an intention of coming and potentially turning it into a 3-season space as opposed to a screen space?
No.
So just to reiterate, so the back of the house, we believe is flush or somewhat flush to the back of the neighbor's house.
It won't extend beyond that.
Well, no, the current, not with their extension, the current 2-story that they have, the Rossiter's is almost flush with the end of their house.
I believe so, yeah. Yes, I see what you're saying, yes. Yes.
Well, no, actually, it's probably
a little offset, I think, right?
Slightly recessed.
It's probably offset probably about, 6 feet.
You're 6 feet back from the end of that
Or 6
2-story.
feet back, correct.
Okay.
Because you have the deck doesn't protrude past their house, and we have a deck off the, a landing area off the back, you can see.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see the landing area.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's protrudes out.
Right. Okay, got it.
And so the addition would come to here, the first floor.
Well, not you
Here,
say
sorry,
that.
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
About like 2
Somewhere
feet-
in that area,
Yeah,
yes.
1 or 2 feet short of it based on the plan.
Yes.
And then an extra 10 feet, and then the second floor would extend about 2/3 of this, let's say. If we're saying it's approximately 30 feet.
Yes.
The first floor would be short 1 or 2 feet, and the second floor would be short 10 feet from the end of the adjacent property.
Yes.
And
That's
do
correct.
realize the reason why it has to go that far is because of the house is so narrow. in order to get any kind of scale. I mean, if we go out to if we go take where you can see that alleyway, if we take the extra 3 feet out
Mhm.
the
On
alleyway,
the other side, yeah.
on the other side, which I mean would then, but I'm going to lose access to my basement by doing that. But I mean, if I had that to use, which then would put it up against the neighbor's house, the brother's house, I mean, I wouldn't have to go out as far, but that doesn't work because that's my access to the basement. I mean, that's kind of some of the dilemma that the algorithms that you're working with here. In order to get enough space, you have to go out long because we don't have the width to work with.
And I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. There's no design. You didn't look at any designs or opportunities for a 1-floor extension.
Well, the screen and porch is where is what we did 3 years ago and was rejected by the committee, is where it was really gone in the first place. So the second floor is the screened in porches, as we have talked to our neighbors, the screened in porches around here are just lovely. And that's kind of what the concept is, to add a screened in porch. And then you can't see because of the berms and the rocks and all on the first floor. You can't see the river. So I have to go up.
Okay.
Would you object to not having the screened in porch and just making it a full deck if that's a point of contention? Or is that sort of deceive the purpose?
Well, the problem around here is, as you know, is bugs, and you're on the river, and
gotcha.
Yeah, so that would be, I mean, it's
limited
screen
use.
limited
Yeah,
use.
gotcha.
And also this, we are facing south, so the sun starts to get kind of beating on you too in the summertime. So
yeah, I understand.
Okay. Any other questions right now? So I believe there's people in online, so we're going to open it up for if anybody's here for public comment for 57 The Strands, we will open it up for public comment. All we ask is that you be clear and concise on your concerns, pro or for, whatever they are. And we're trying to limit everybody's amount of time that we're given to each person for public comment to, like, if you can be really concise within like 3 to 4 minutes. So we'll open it up. You just have to unmute yourself, state who you are, and give us and where your address. So would anybody like to have a public comment?
This is Gail Seitz. Am I?
We can hear you.
All right. We live at 55 The Strand. So next door, we're the yellow house. So the other side of the alley that you've been looking at.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I submitted some concerns to the commission prior to the meeting. So hopefully you all got a copy of them. And I'll try to just highlight a few areas of concern. One is the alleyway and the steps that come right up to our property line. We believe there should be a setback there. And we agree that it would disrupt the view from the street. I mean, the alleys along the Strand are special that, you can see the view back to the river. And there aren't that many of them. And so having concrete and brick stairs there would disrupt the view. The other thing we don't quite understand is our side of the alley. So there's a metal fence right on the property line. Is our access to the rear of our house. That's how we get our trash cans to the front. That's how we and workers get materials to do anything at all to the back of their house, to our house, because that's really our only access unless we go in the front door. And we just don't understand how, if you block that off on 57's side, how you do things like get trash cans from the back of the house or get workers back there to paint or get materials back there to mulch. So, because there's no other, our property lines go straight out into the river. We own the width of our properties. And so as far as I understand, there's no easements from any of the other properties. So one concern is the steps in the alleyway that would block it off. Another concern is the massing of the addition. It is a very narrow house and small historic property. And it appears with the existing addition plus the new 30-foot addition, that it exceeds the size of the historic house. And we also have concerns about the impact on privacy of the neighboring properties. The proposed addition has doors and windows on both sides, plus the second floor screened-in porch and patio extends out into our garden area. We have hedges and other shrubbery that surrounds our ground floor garden, but there's really no way to protect privacy-wise. We all live close to one another in the historic area, and we try as best we can to respect our neighbor's property. And I'd also like to make a comment about the massing of the Lorenz house on the corner, talking about it going 30 or 40 feet back. Those are actually carriage houses that extend back beyond their first floor addition. So they are historic. And another area of concern is drainage, both with new roof lines from rain and flooding. We are all in this area in the 100-year floodplain, and the river comes over the banks more frequently all the time. We've experienced Hurricane Sandy and some other nor'easters where the river rose and not quite up to our first floor, but it rose and used the alleys to escape to the strand. Most of the flooding that we get now, we call them more nuisance storms. The river does exceed the banks and it comes over. It does go into the property on 57, the strand, into their garden. And with a rather large concrete brick structure and maybe some fill back there, I mean, it's just going to force it onto our lot. So we have concerns about that as well.
Okay, we appreciate your comments, and your comments were forwarded to all the commissioners, so we did have an opportunity to read them in advance, but we do appreciate your overview. Is there anybody else on the line here this evening for public comment for 57 The Strand?
Good evening. This is Mark Lorenz. I'm with my wife, Laurie Lorenz. We are at 59 The Strand. We've moved into the community during COVID times here, so I haven't had a chance to meet many of you, but we've been here since June. So thanks very much for the good work that you're doing on these type of reviews. Some of our concerns just with this are number one, just the massing. It's a pretty significant structure, both on the first floor as well as the second floor. One of the things that drew us here is the fantastic water views, and what this would do is essentially block water views downstream from our first floor kitchen window, as well as up on the second floor where that screened privacy deck would be proposed on the second floor. There's a pretty significant impact on a water fuse looking downstream toward the pier. We also had concerns just regarding access. There's been some comment on the stairs and the narrow alley there, which I understand. In order to access the construction site with any type of excavation equipment, materials, supplies, laborers, I think the only way they're going to do that is across our property from Harmony. We're not aware of any easement that is currently in place there. We do have a gate, and just that would interfere with our enjoyment of our property if we're using our backyard as essentially a construction driveway to access the site with any materials and supplies and laborers or heavy equipment to do the site. So that was, kind of our main concern for the large massing of the structure and how that would change, how it would impact water views for us, access to the site and how that would occur. The typical things you have with construction of noise, vibration, things like that with the historic homes that are in this area. So that pretty much summarizes it for us. I certainly understand the Rossiter's desire to improve their home, and that's very understandable. It's just we have multiple concerns about this. If it was just the steps, you could kind of work around that. But it's the steps, the easement, massing, impact on water views, what this would do with drainage, and just how the heck we're going to access the construction site without essentially driving through my property on this one. So thank you very much. And again, I appreciate the work you guys are doing through the review process. And I certainly appreciate that this type of review process exists. I've lived in historic districts in other places where this type of review did not occur. And I'd much rather have the opportunity to kind of voice concerns and have you guys review this than to be in the Wild West where anything would go. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on the line to make public comments for the application being discussed?
Chairman Fontana, just wanted to let you know that Judy Boldini is also in the lobby, if you want me to bring her in.
Yes, please. Okay.
I'm just observing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I see there's a few other people on the line. I'm going to assume that there's no additional public comments for 57 The Strand. If there is, you need to take yourself off mute and make them, or we're closing public comment. Okay, thank you. So public comment is now closed for 57 The Strand, and we can get back to some questions. So just out of curiosity, the first floor addition, like I'm totally okay with like the first floor, maybe a little bit smaller, but on scale overall, a first floor addition, I would feel comfortable about. I'm just having a little bit of, I'll be honest, a little bit of hard time on the second floor for mass and size and the stairs overall. I just, any other project that we've worked with on homes that had an alleyway with stairs, we have asked them to incorporate them more in the design where they can't be seen in the alleyway. So, moving the stairs, and I know you kindly said you would look at the other side, and it sounds like you may have some, some issues with them on the other side as well. So for me, it's a little bit of the stairs, moving them would be more favorable, and just the second floor. look, it is a beautiful view from all those homes. You know, it's wonderful that you have them. And just, you know, if there was a way to make that smaller, I don't know. But the second floor seems to be a little bit more of my my hang up personally. So, and the materials, I would like to see the materials be of the appropriate materials. So wood, wood. So that's kind of, you know, you mentioned the railing not being PVC, going to wood, which I appreciate that. The hardy board, I prefer to see that wood, though, or any other engineered type woods that are appropriate. So we do have alternative materials that would be appropriate, maybe over and above hardy board in this scenario. And that's kind of like where I am. So.
This is Bill. Allow me to make a suggestion. I believe it was the architect who said there may be an alternative to handling the staircase as it's currently presented. Can we defer until the next meeting a presentation of that so that we can really have a better evaluation and answer some of your questions, Laura? It seems to make sense to me. And there's something that even goes beyond that. And we've had this discussion before with Lila and Laura and just about everybody. There is nothing in the enabling legislation of the Historic Commission that allows you to evaluate anything with regard to proportion or mass and scale. And you continue to use that language. And it's not a criteria that you're entitled to use. And if you, no, please let me.
No, go ahead. No, absolutely. Go ahead.
Go and read it again. I mean, I've written these things and I know what it says. And it says nothing about that. This is the same discussion we had with regard to the proposed residence on 3rd Street, the Diascanis application. And I can see that we're going to continue to have it. Now, if you feel that those are criteria that are set forth in the ordinance, you'll have to point it out to me because it says nothing of the kind. And we can have that conversation in a sidebar prior to the next meeting or at the next meeting. But we should have it before we rule on applications based upon the mass of the projected addition to a home, because we're not entitled to evaluate that.
And I would be certainly happy to have a sidebar with you and have this conversation at the next meeting. I would just refer you to the Historic Area Commission guidelines and standards that are referenced in the ordinance and that have a whole section on new construction and new additions to existing construction, and where it stipulates.
Are they part of the ordinance?
They were, yes, they were adopted by City Council as part of the review. HAC can develop their design guidelines and standards for reviewal and for the issuance of a certificate of approval when they look at applications. And when we look at new construction, new additions, we talk about how there's a historic character and there's site implementation, setback orientation, overall envelope, building size and scale, roof shapes, rhythms and proportions to architectural details. We also say that new additions should be located and designed to minimally affect the perception of the original structure from the public right of way. and how they should be compatible with the proportions, design, and materials of the historic building. So that, and then, it goes into more details in that section of the design guidelines. And so this is where we have sort of different terms, and we talk about size and scale and how they should be preferably smaller in scale than the existing building, not taller, and clearly differentiated from the existing structure, and that they should also be proportionate in terms of roof form, massing, heights, and spacings. So
Okay.
those elements are within the guidelines, and
you're saying that the historic guidelines were specifically adopted and are dispositive.
I shall not use the term dispositive, having not used it, and that not being one of my typical sort of vocabulary. But yes, they are referred to in the ordinance that the HAC can establish criteria and guidelines by which to review and have a determination of certificate of appropriateness. There used to be original guidelines, and in 2014 through 2016, there was a comprehensive effort to update the guidelines with both public consultation, a special, advisory committee with representatives from all stakeholders within Newcastle, property owners, business owners, and different groups to look. And the result were these guidelines that were upgraded and took into effect, additional materials, new materials. And then the supplement, there was a supplement that's a graphic supplement, and that one was just to clarify elements and provide additional information, which also has graphics about, scales and proportions and what is a context. These were just meant as a graphic dictionary to explain some of the criteria we were talking about, scales of additions and how far they go. So yes, within the parameters that HAC applies, when they say we apply, and when we look at a tier 1 review, it's whether they conform or do not conform with the Historic Area Commission design guidelines and standards. These are the parameters that were established. And I would be happy if you want to have a sidebar about going through the history and the ordinance and the cross references, as it was also feedback from, not only City Council, but legal counsel. But these are the parameters that are there for the review. And they specifically talk about massing. I just wanted to point that out, and happy to have any sidebar discussion that you'd want to have at a future date. Or
No, you did a good job of explaining. And if that, all that you said was approved by City Council with a reading of obviously the historic guidelines in mind, then they really should improve their ordinance. But so that people who are trying to do things one way or another will at least have accurate guidelines. But okay, that clears some things up. My only fear would be that language is probably written in such a way as that it can mean anything or nothing. That's just been my experience. But okay, thank you.
So, so Bill, based on, your first comment when we started about, and so Mr. Dalby, it sounds like you have maybe some ideas for the stairs, but you wanted to talk to Mr. and Mrs. Rossiter first. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, totally understandable. So what we could offer at this stage, once you talk to them and maybe represent drawings, because it sounds like what I gathered for a variety of the comments of the commissioners is the stairs seem to be a tie-up for many of us, right? I'll speak in general terms, but Kevin, I think you had indicated the stairs are a concern for you. They're a concern for me. So is it possible we have the ability to table applications, which would give you the opportunity to speak to your clients and then represent a new set of drawings, which then we would review at the next meeting? Does that make sense to everybody?
I will defer to the Rossiters on that, but from my end, it makes sense, yes.
This is Bill. It makes sense to me as well. All they would be doing is amending the existing application.
Right, they will be correct. There's no additional fees. They're going to just come back with, if this design concept that Mr. Dalby has for the Rossiters and they're comfortable with that, in incorporating that in the design, they would come forth with a new drawing for us to review that design change.
Can I say something?
Please.
I just want to assure Mr. Dalby and the Rossiters, we are all homeowners in this community. We have great sympathy for their efforts to enjoy their property. We all want that. And we thank them for living in the town and spending their hard-earned money to make their part of our town better. There is a commission of commissioners, and we have a generally, I think, we have a general understanding of the sensibilities of the people in this community. And we try, at least I try, speaking for myself, to extend every consideration to help a homeowner achieve his goals. I would recommend you be better off tabling this thing, making some adjustments. My biggest hang up are the stairs, not the mass, because mass, like pepperoni, everyone has a personal taste for it. And you can't see that mass extension from the front, which I think is very important. But again, I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I don't think it's going to be well received with the drawings you presently have showing those steps on the side. Those alleys are very important to people who stroll through this town. It gives a view, breaks up the streetscape of the town quite a bit, preventing it from looking like a factory town in York, Pennsylvania. And it adds to the character. And if that were blocked by stairs, it becomes a little bit different. We're just asking you, at least I am asking you, put in your thinking cap, try to accommodate the interests of people on this commission who we think represent the interests of the people in the town, and we'll try to find a way forward. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. So, so what then occurs, just so we're aware, if we table it, just so you know, you discussion with the client, you come back with some new drawings, just make sure that those drawings are in the city office 10 days before our next meeting. Okay, so that's extremely important when we table. Okay.
I do have a quick question.
Please.
I understand the PVC, but actually I was looking on our drawing and actually said engineered lumber. Is engineered lumber an acceptable substitute? Meaning AZAC, not AZAC, but like the Trex lumber, the Trex deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I was looking at this where it's talking about the wood post wrapped in PVC trim.
Right. Yeah, and that could easily be wood. We were looking more from a maintenance standpoint, and the PVC, it has the same look as wood, and I understand it is still an artificial material.
And just out of curiosity, maybe you touch base with Layla about hardy board versus other engineered woods, just for conversation. Okay.
And then one more thing, I'm sorry, just one more thing, Laura,
yes.
to Dave, because we've worked on this, we've done this in the past, right? One thing that always helps when you do something like this, when you show in the plans, when you've shown all of this, I think what's kind of helpful is just to do a simple outline.
Yes.
Of the rest of the property. So that way we're not having, theoretical looking at Google conversation. It shows it, and you don't have to, you just, you take the pictures and do it. And that way everybody, has all the information and understands, and everybody makes an informed decision.
Sure, we can update that.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll, so Mr. and Mrs. Rossiter, just so we're all clear about the process, we're about to make a motion to table your application to the next meeting. And then you and your architect, because he also, he had indicated that he may have some additional ideas about the stairs, could work with the two of you in regards to the design of that, and taking into account, all the commissioners' comments, looking at the drawings and then representing. You don't have to reapply, you just represent your drawings. They just have to be in the city office 10 days before our next meeting. And then you will come on the agenda at the next meeting under old business, and we will continue our discussion at that point.
Okay.
Does that make sense for the two of you?
Yes, it does. Thank you for the consideration.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to make a motion to table the application at 57 The Strand to our next meeting. We have provided feedback and to the applicant and to the architect, and they understand the necessity of getting us back drawings 10 days before the next meeting. They will be on old business at the next meeting, and we will have our further discussion then. Can I have a second to that?
When's the next meeting first? I'm sorry.
That's a great question.
Second Thursday, I believe.
It's
right?
the second Thursday of every month, so we can.
So it'll be the 13th.
May 13th at 6:30.
All right.
Thank you. Can I have a second to the motion?
I motion. Second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Okay, so motion passed for tabling of the application for 57 The Strand. Thank you very much to everybody who attended for all the new applications and your patience as we went through the process. The commissioners, you're more than welcome to stay on. The commissioners have one more piece of business that they'll be discussing, which are electric vehicle charging stations. So thank you for everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so commissioners, as we talked about last month, we were put forth by the mayor and the city council around EV charging stations, and really starting this conversation in the 3rd Street parking lot. So Justin has been very active with John from the Planning Commission, in getting us some information about what it's going to look like. Well, then yesterday I went to the parking lot with Scott Bloomquist from MSC. So I have some pictures that I would like to share with everybody so that I can show you what they've done and maybe what my thought pattern is, and to get everybody's feedback. So Layla, you're done sharing, right?
Yeah, I've stopped sharing. You should
Okay.
be good.
Let me just go pull it up before I say and pull up the picture. So the first thing I'd like to say about the parking lot is that it's not wired. They have conduit in the ground, and the conduit is, so I'm just going to have you look at my, let me just see if I can make these bigger. All right. I'm going to download them all, and then I'll pull them up. So when you pull into the parking lot, I don't have these all numbered, but just go one by one. All right, let me share my screen now. We're talking about these being on the left-hand side when you come into the parking lot. So sorry if this is going to look small on your screen. Okay. So basically, this is coming down 3rd Street. This is the road to the bank. And then the entrance to the parking lot is down here. These are the first 6 spots on the left-hand side, okay? So they have, the conduit is actually for the chargers. They have 3 conduits in this area. So I'm gonna have to just go back and forth with the pictures for a second. So give me a. So my thought pattern is that I wish I could go to the next one. Oh, see, let's see if that works. Right, you don't want to see my whole family, that's for sure. Okay. It's gonna just be, I'll just show it here. So this is, now I'm in, everyone, this is the road that goes to M&T Bank.
We're not seeing it.
We're not seeing it.
Oh. All right, one moment, please. There we go. Stop sharing. Let's see if I can share this one.
While Laura is doing this, Bill, I'll be sharing with all the commissioners a copy of the original certified local government application. And I think it's a good reminder because it underscores in it all of the ordinances and the adoption of the guidelines and the meeting, and the record by which city council adopted the guidelines and the updates and all that. So I think it'll just it's a nice way to have a summary of where we're at and the more recent adoptions of the guidelines, just for the framework.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Does everyone, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So
You don't see any images.
you don't see the pictures?
Yeah, I think you're sharing your main screen, but maybe not the image of the file itself. So if you want to maybe just share your desktop, then we'll sort of see everything there.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, if not, each time you open, it's a separate.
Yeah, I know. Such a pain. All right, hold on.
I know way too much about the vagaries of Zoom at this point.
Oh, I know. See, I had to master Teams, so this is like all new to me.
You might need to extract them all as well. It might be.
Yeah, or Layla, you know what? I'm gonna just, because you're much better at this, I'm gonna forward you my email. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Let me just do that. But anyway, so the whole point being is that these are on the left-hand side, they have 3 conduits. And when you look to see the pictures, you'll see that they, so is it, I don't have you anymore, you're him.
Have you sent, it's Layla.Hamroon@Tetra Tech.
Okay, I haven't sent you on there.
Yeah, Layla.Hamroon@TetraTech.com.
There it is. I got 5 computers going. So my, so anyway, Scott was very nice. Like I said, that he told me, kind of what they're doing. And I thought that, I'll just show it to at least you can see. So these are, the pictures, Layla will get them up better, but this is spot, do you see my computer screen? Does everyone see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is 5 and 6, parking spot 5 and 6. And the conduit, see this white line right here? The parking space line?
Yep.
The conduit for the charger is like right here. So they put conduits on the white lines down the left-hand side. So this is the furthest one from the street for those 6 cars. Here are the 6 cars. So if I pull into the parking lot, these are the spots along the left-hand side. That makes sense to everybody so far?
Yeah, and I'm almost there with the downloads.
So this is looking at it from 3rd Street, looking right, down, like, so now I'm a little past the driveway. I'm at, you know where I am? I'm at the stop sign. Everyone know there's that stop sign on 3rd Street, right? I'm standing at the stop sign, looking into the parking lot.
So Laura, I'm going to share and bump you out.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll stop sharing.
Oh, I can't, you have to stop sharing, yeah.
Yeah, yep, go ahead.
The way it's set up, okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, no. All right, so this is before the stop sign. This is, right at the M&T driveway. I just showed you this because when we were talking about, driving down the street and seeing, if they were going to be on the right-hand side, we would have seen them when we were driving down. Now, when you're driving down, there's a lot of bushes here, right? So this isn't filled in yet, right? You see a lot of youth of trees and landscaping. But if you look through there, you would not see, currently, you would not see that pump, okay? So again, this is the alleyway. This is where it would be, right? Right at this white line. The white line, the conduit is between on the green lawn, lined up with that last white line.
And John and I were mistaken thinking that it was on the other side when
Correct.
we talked about it last, and that certainly was more problematic than this. Of course, this is a much better
Correct.
scenario. Yeah.
Yes. So that's, that's where the, making it big, so this is, again, this was like walking down the alleyway. It's going to be right next, right in front of these bushes, which will all eventually fill in. And there's 2 trees. You can see there's a tree before the gray car, and there's a tree after the gray car. So this is the area, yeah, that's when you're pulling in. You can see the parking spots. You wouldn't see the pump when you first pull in, right? So you would have to drive down the alleyway. That's at the stop sign, looking to my, looking down into the 6 spots. From here, you would see it from here at the stop sign. So, 10 feet to my left, you wouldn't see it. You would somewhat see it here, but the post would somewhat block it. Like that lamp post would somewhat block the view, I think, of the machine. Plus, nothing's grown in yet. So that white line, is it that one or the other side? That's the wrong picture, but.
I can go, just, I can just,
yeah.
You let me know where you want me to
So
stop.
those are, I just want to show you, this is the electrical units for them. So they put them on the back of the posts. It's only a 200 amps. Each one of these pumps takes 80 amps. So the most that they can do really comfortably is 2, max 3. So they can only put 3 pumps on a 200 amp. So that's the electrical.
Laura, when you say pumps, you mean a charging station? Right?
Yeah, sorry, it's just
That's one place to plug the cord into.
correct. Yeah, the pump. But yes, the charge. So right here where that white line is, this is where it would be in this general vicinity closest, to this car, basically. So this car would be getting charged.
So what we're talking about is what to do with charging stations for 6 cars. That's the limited scope of what we're discussing, right? We're not looking for a system for the entire town going out in the future.
We are talking about one charging station right now. And where can we install one charging station in the 3rd Street parking lot to get a feel for it? How many people use it? Will it be,
also,
how inconspicuous would it be? And also the thing is MSC can move it further down. So you can see there's spots further down past these 6 spots, right? There's spots further down there. They could move the conduit down there. The problem with it, you guys are much more engineers than me, but the problem is the further you get away from the power source, the bigger the wires have to be and the bigger the conduit has to be because of drop off.
Right,
Right? So they would have to excavate and the wires would have to be different if we were going to have them move it further down into the next set of 10 parking spots or whatever's down there. So yeah, Kevin.
Well, I'm an electrical engineer, so that distance, there's no drop. You'd have to move hundreds of feet to have a drop. I suspect they can do 6 30-amp charging stations there based on the size of that service that they have. So we're talking about 6 stations.
Well, we're actually
No,
talking
no, no,
about,
three
yeah, the
three
two, yeah, two,
units.
yeah, two that has 2 chargers on it. So it's one.
But right now, we just want to install one. That's all we're looking to install in the Third
So
Street parking lot at this time.
It's one unit that charges 2
One
vehicles.
unit that
Correct.
charges 2 cars. So
Well,
again,
what we're doing now will be tossed out in 4 or 5 years because the technology, the cosmetics, the packaging, and the cost is going to rapidly change.
sure,
So
sure.
it's kind of a feasibility to see whether or not we have fistfights over who gets to plug in at night and things like that. It's a social test as well.
Yeah,
So I have no strong feelings. We should actually bury that supply equipment. It can be buried in a vault. And this should be something that's considered going forward. You put it into a vault and you just have a little green metal door over the top. So you don't have that stuff hanging off poles all over the city. That will turn out to be very, very ugly. It is more expensive, but then you don't have cars running into it and you have less damage from vandalism and other things. Put it in an underground vault. It's a standard practice for people who are willing to spend more money. The long
Kevin,
term,
what would go in the vault? I'm sorry, I missed the beginning.
well, the equipment you showed on a pole,
Oh, those are on the back of the brick. Yes, okay.
that
Yes.
goes into the ground. And
Okay.
you just have, and then you just have a little, it looks like a hitching post would stick up.
Okay, well, I
Either
don't think
stick up
MSC is gonna
18
change
inches
that
or
right now.
sticks up 2 feet.
Yeah,
So you have a hitching post there. And I imagine it's going to have to be one of these high-speed chargers because I was out in Nevada for some time back in February, and there was a Tesla plugged into the front of the hotel, and it was like a hangar queen in an airport that never flew. It was there in the morning when I left. It was there in the evening. It was there the next morning.
Yeah.
All it was doing is getting charged. The poor guy couldn't get back to California. But
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about.
Enforcement will be an issue, yeah, also.
so they're gonna have a high-speed charging station so people can get out of there in 2 or 3 hours, and someone else has to work out the courtesies, how you do it, and who goes
yeah.
first. And
So
who goes
we're
second.
right. That's,
Well, that's not
That's
possible
later.
now.
So this is all going to be torn down, but within just a few years, because this is going to grow very rapidly. But the model that we're going to have to follow just by pragmatic understanding of things is something that's been time tested for centuries. And that is if you need to nourish your transportation overnight, you've got to find a stable to take it to where people will take care of those things for you. So in the morning, you walk to the stable and get your transportation and get on the road again.
right.
So there will have to be corrals or stables that hold lots and lots of chargeable cars. Otherwise, we're going to have hordes draped all over every street in this town.
So that's the secondary issue is residential. So we'll get back to that in a second. So actually, Kevin wasn't at the last meeting, so he didn't see. Can you pull up the SEMA, what was it, SEMA control? Is that what the?
SEMA Connect.
SEMA Connect. So we'll show you the unit that they actually have, Kevin, so you can see it. So my recommendation is that we install the one unit in the furthest parking spot, the 5-6 parking spot.
And the gentleman from, there's Mr. Clayton, I believe, from the trustees recommended that too, just to also not aggravate people about taking up parking spots, like a slow trickle. So in other words, like you just built this parking lot and now you're filling it with, cars that aren't going to move.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yes. So this is the one that MSC owns, Kevin, just to give you an idea.
It looks very historic.
Doesn't it? I know.
So right. So I mean, we're trying to work with them with what we have currently.
No,
So,
it's temporary, so it doesn't much matter to me.
so, we just, again, I think we should try it. We should let them try it. Let's try it in that one spot in 5 and 6. It's the furthest away currently where the conduit is, with the understanding that, depending on the views and feedback we get. Now, we're not about policing. They got to figure out how they're going to kick people out of these things after the cars are charged. That's not our responsibility by any means. So that's a whole nother department, right? So we're just putting it in to get the feel of it, to see how it works, to see when this all fills in, when the landscaping is all grown in and trees have leaves, like how obtrusive is this in the landscaping of the parking lot? That's our main goal. Okay. So
That's about as intrusive as it's going to be. But again, in 4 or 5 years, they will look different. They'll probably charge faster. And
I don't know how fast this charges.
and the town needs to come up with some ground rules about how to do it if he had, well, 1,500 cars needing to be plugged in. So there's a lot of questions about the power grid.
Sure. I think the next piece they wanted us to discuss was residential. So I told them we were not ready to make any recommendations on residential at the current time. MSC had talked to SEMA Connect about residential and some ideas. So, that is going to be a whole nother discussion point. But right now, we're just talking about this one unit in the 3rd Street parking lot. So I just wanted all commissioners to know, where it would go, what it's going to look like, and that we're telling them to install one in the farthest conduit, the 3rd conduit from 3rd Street. So does anybody have
the MSC guys take a look at burying equipment in the future so they have a standard kit? The sooner they start burying that stuff, the more appealing the town will be. Otherwise, it's going to look like electrical.
Yeah, obviously there wasn't a lot of coordination between them and, putting it on the back of the pillars. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and further, let's not have anyone say that we've given the official hack sanction to using this every place. I could care less whether it's this model or any other model, as long as it doesn't blow up when you plug it in, and someone has tested it so it won't. It's basically, it's a plug with some blinking lights on. So they're all pretty straightforward things. It's not rocket scientist work, but just as a technical tryout, a prove out. That's all it is.
That's all we're doing. And this would only be in a commercial type area. This is not something we would let residents, put up in front of their house. So this is only in a commercial area, such as a parking lot.
This is the commercial version of the SEMA. And as we're talking, I'm just typing. I should stop sharing. I'm just typing because I'm trying to download that brochure that I can just share with everybody.
Okay.
And
so I need to just go to City Council on Wednesday night to their meeting because they wanted our feedback. So I just want to make sure we're all on board. Is everybody okay with testing 1 in the 3rd Street parking lot, in the 3rd conduit, which is parking space 5 and 6? That's what I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about that.
Yes, as long as it's understood, this isn't precedence for anything for a parking lot or a residence or business in the future.
Correct.
There's no precedence. There's no one can refer to this in the future.
No, correct.
I think that was the point that was discussed at the last meeting, which is if you have one, let's just have one and put it, and then people can actually react to something that they see and understand, when Laura was looking at it, because people have such instinctive reaction, pro or con. And I think by looking at something that's sleek and simple, not necessarily historic, but it might just disappear, within the framework. I think it's the best way to have a mock-up. We should call it a mock-up.
Right.
And that's.
I have a question. I have a question. When we discussed this last week, we were talking about seeing it from the park and seeing it, and it was ugly in the whole 9 yards. How is that changing? Is that still a concern for? I have been trying to figure out what is our role in this. It's clearly modern looking, and it's not going to change into something historic overnight. They're going to put it in that spot, and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. I know it's for a test, but at one point, are we going to have to decide whether it needs to be covered up more, or as all of a sudden it will be miraculously okay the way it looks? That's what I'm trying to find out.
So I think what we were saying last time, Justin, was if you were driving down 3rd Street,
sure,
And I looked over to my left, and the first thing I saw in the first 6 spots were those pumps. That was the problem, right? Because of the view when you're driving down the one-way street.
Absolutely.
Right?
I couldn't
So
agree more.
being on the left-hand side, one is a little bit of a plus, right? Like it's kind of out of your view when you're driving down. I think there's a lot of landscaping that will grow in over there that will give it some additional kind of hiding it.
Right.
And in actuality, I told him this is only a test, and if we feel like, you know, people are having negative reaction to it and the way it looks, and it's really not getting covered, and it's causing other problems, let's say, we would probably ask them to continue the conduit and the wire further down on the left-hand side.
What about people seeing it
To
from
me,
the park?
I'll be honest, one thing, to me, further down is less protected. They don't have as many trees down there. They don't have as many bush, like, to me, it's a little bit more exposed down there, in all honesty, when I started to really look at it. But
that's why at one point we're talking more about tucking it in the side where there's the fence next to the buildings, where it could, then you could have bushes that come around it. You could put it, so it becomes, it's like, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And that way it can be more discreet because it's not standing out. I think as a historic district, modernity is going to come in for certain things. Not everything can, and not everything should be made to look, you know, like 19th century. But for example, Newcastle, except what they're doing now with Delaware Street, you know, you look in Europe, you don't have overhead, you know, utilities and poles and all that. That's all buried because that's considered, to Kevin's point, a worthwhile environment to be able to sort of see the environment as it was. I think these are utilitarian. They speak their purpose. You look at them on a picture, you think it has a fairly discrete profile, but you will see that best when you have the mock-up. And when we spoke last week, my idea was tuck them where they can be tucked as discreetly. It's worth the extra digging, which is not, you know, to Kevin's point, it's not really long. It's worth the extra conduit to put it. If you can put it underground till we get there, tuck it next to where you already have a fence and you're going to have some vegetation. So it kind of blends in with everything that's there. You know, I had a question. I don't know if the SEMA can be colored with different types of metals, because you could have a thing if it's next to a wood fence. If you could, it may not be an option.
It is.
So if you can, you have ways of trying to make it less intrusive, but it has a purpose. And I think what I think is commendable is trying to push the envelope, saying, hey, we're not saying go ahead and do it. We're being deliberate about this is, and I think seeing it tucked in would be my preference, where it can be hidden by other architectural elements, other physical elements, or other vegetation elements, as opposed to being standalone. And yes, to your point, you want to look up the battery and say, okay, here are, you know, here's an extra pole. There's all the historic poles, and here's the charging station with a car that's there doing its thing. So I think that's why this is sort of the deliberate way of doing things with the parameters that you have and having a real world study. Asking for color that would work better and blend in, I think, would be also a smart idea.
Oh yeah, we're allowed to market it any way we would choose, as long as it doesn't interfere with the apparatus. Yeah.
Well, the one they own, well, I don't know what color it is. They own one.
It's the same color as the one you saw.
It's a silver one. It's
Yeah,
probably
you can paint it, you can mark it, and you can
Oh, okay.
whole 9 yards.
Maybe they can just make it look like a tree. Just kidding.
I don't know. So seeing it from people who are in Battery Park, seeing it in the parking lot, that's it is or is not a concern.
It is a concern, but there's not much we can do at this current stage, right? Right now, we just need to get it in there so we can better see how would you camouflage this.
And then you have an argument to say, move it over there. It will be more camouflage. I'm standing in Battery Park. We should do it that way.
Right.
I'm on both sides of this. I completely want to find that happy middle ground, because I think it's important that we find it, because it's sitting out all by itself is not a good idea. And also having it so covered up that it stops working through the heat and the whole 9 yards is also not a really good idea. So I'm just really trying to figure out where that line is. And obviously
so are we.
We're gonna dip our pinky in the water and see what happens.
Right, because further down, I mean, there's no fencing, there's only bushes, and you have the open parking lot behind it. So it just gets more difficult with how do you camouflage it, right? So I know you had sent me some things, but that
Oh.
doesn't seem, that wasn't like, yeah, no, I mean, it was a good thought pattern, but that's not like maybe appropriate, as well.
Sure.
So we are dipping our feet in the water with this one unit.
And again, let me add that it has no functional reason for the shape that it presently is in the brochure. It could be as simple as a wooden box with 2 cords on the inside. You lift the wooden box lid, you pull out your cord, you plug it in, you put it back. So the basic active unit can be very small. You just need a place to hold the cord and the plug, the adapter. So the technology is going to change so very, very, very rapidly in the next couple of years. We just want to make sure that our actions and decisions do not get misconstrued as setting a pattern or a template for the future, because it's not.
One caveat that maybe wasn't brought up is that they're able to purchase all these units for essentially free with rebates from Delaware. So they're sort of looking to everyone for recommendations to we're trying to buy as many as we can for free. Whether we use them all is another story, but it would be dumb not to take advantage of that. And that ends June 30th. So that's somewhat of the rush on the timeline, is to go, hey, these things look like this. We're going to put the one in there, and we decide that we don't like it, no one like it, period, no matter what. And now we have 7 more chargers that we can't use.
They can be relocated down to charge police vehicles or emergency.
Oh, sure. I know. I mean, that's hardly the issue.
I mean, they may not
buy the units, but they're not being bought for their appearance. They're simply there, and there needs to be a spend that takes place in the next couple of months. But the town really needs to consider, you have to get back to something like a stable or a corral where people can take 40, 50 cars at a time and pay the stable mate to keep them plugged in and check the current flow and make sure they don't start on fire. Newcastle does not represent the vast American car driving public. Everyone else has driveways, and they have no concern about where they're going to put a charging station.
Right.
That can never work here. So we're going to have to do it in some central locations, like was done 100 years ago with barns and stables and corrals. So that's what it's going to turn out to be.
We're making we're going back 360 degrees. So it just, again, all great comments. Justin, you kind of know where we're coming from, right? So I'm going to the city council meeting.
Oh yeah. My concern the entire time was, when I brought it up like a year ago, is I knew this was going to be come in front of us. I wanted to make sure we weren't, didn't have our eyes crossed, like what, because the impression I get is it's not impression, it's happening. We're going to need to put them in. I want to make sure we don't get blindsided by it, because they're going to put them in whether we like it or not. So we want to make sure we have our chance to make sure they do it well, not just do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think we need to make a motion or anything, but I just wanted to be clear about what, so I'm going in front of the council on Tuesday. I'm going to give them our recommendation. This is our mock-up.
Mock-up is always a term. Mock-up.
Yeah, we'll say this is the mock-up only for commercial use. The mock-up is really only for commercial use. This is not a mock-up for residential use in any capacity. And we're working on the residential with MSC and other, I guess, planning too. I'm not even sure where planning fits in, but I'm sure that they're involved somehow. So that's what will be taking place Tuesday night.
Awesome.
And then I did want to give a last quick update on the CLG grant for the permit application update.
Right.
And I did have, again, my last communication was today with Granny Davis, who's the assistant SPO, and she was apologetic and promised that I would have the draft agreement by the end of next week at the latest. So hopefully at the next HAC meeting, I will be sending everybody 2 weeks before all those sample applications that we talked about, and we can really get rolling with this and get it done. So it's happening.
Yay. All right, anything else? Okay, great. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Hi.
I.
Have a
All
good
right,
night,
thanks, everybody. All right,
Thank
see ya.
Bye.
Bye.